Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihare. Gopi Janabalabha Girivadura Hore. Gopi Janabalabha Girivadura Hore. Yasudanan Dana Pracha Jana Ranjana Yasudanan Dana Pracha Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Banachare Yamuna Tera Manachare Jayo Radhu Manuva Kunya Bihake. Jaya Radhu Madhava Kunya Bihare. Gopi Rana Madhava Girivadhare. Gopi Jana Allaguba Girivadhare. Yasudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachare Yamuna Tera Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihare. Jaya Radhu Madhava Kunya Bihare. Madhuva Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Teta Satyashi Shimad His Divine Grace Sabaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Voice Now Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidvaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Gajai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shai Mukund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Gajai Vrindavanam Gajai Machuranam Gajai Jagadada Sami Gajai Munamai Gajai Shrimati Lasi Devi Gajai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Gajai Go Premananda Hari Hari Go. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Budale Srimad Bhagavatam Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shinubadi Paschachyadesh Tarni. So today, we're continuing to read from the middle of the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9 and 6 to 7. So I'm just going to read the Sanskrit, just me, read the Sanskrit once, and then we'll go on to the middle of the purport, if that's all right with everybody. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Parvato Narano Domyo Bhagavan Badarayana Brahadvashva Varadvaja Sishishyo Ranukasita Vashishta Indra Pramadas Trito Gritsmadutshita Sita Kakshivan Gautamo Trishcha Koshiko Ta Sudarshana. And the translation is, all the sages like Parvati Muni, Narada, Domya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brahadvashva, Varadvaja, and Parashuram and disciples Vashishta, Indra Pramada, Drita Gritsamada, Asita. So there's a bug here. Oops. Okay, let's see. Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshana were present. And so we read about some of these personalities, including Srila Vyasadeva yesterday. And now we're going to go, okay, to Briha Dashva. That's the one, the next one. Brihad Dashva. What? He was scrolling. Okay. Okay. Brihad Dashva, if you can find that. Can you find it? Okay. An ancient sage who used, so purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. An ancient sage who used to meet Maharaj Yudhishthira now and then. First of all, he met Maharaj Yudhishthira at Kamyavan. This sage narrated the history of Maharaj Nala. There is another Brihadashva who is the son of the Ikshvaku dynasty. Of course, Maharaj Nala, that's another famous story in the Vedic literatures, particularly the Mahabharata, and also in the Ramayana. And that's the famous story of Nal and Damayanti. Amazing story, which we don't have time to tell right now, but just really amazing story of chastity. Okay, so next sage, Bharadwaja. He is one of the 7 great rishis and was present at the time of the birth ceremony of Arjuna. The powerful rishi sometimes undertook severe penances on the shore of the Ganges, and his ashram is still celebrated at Prayagadama. It is learned that this rishi, while taking bath in the Ganges, happened to meet Gritachi, one of the beautiful society girls of heaven, and thus he discharged 7 which was kept and preserved in an earthen pot, and from which Drona was born. Of course, the word Drona means a pot. So, Dronacharya, actually it's interesting, in the Mahabharata, almost no one has an ordinary birth. You know, you have Kripacharya, who was born from the sage Saradwan, and who had a similar encounter with an Apsara. And there's Kripacharya and his sister Kripi. Well, the Kripi doesn't mean something bad like in English. It means like merciful. Kripacharya, Kripa Sindhu, things like that. And they were both born on like a blade of grass. And they were discovered by Shantanu, who adopted them. And Kripi married Dronacharya. Anyway, and Ashwatthama is his son. It's actually quite interesting. So, anyway, all these births, the Pandavas' births, everybody's birth was unusual. I cannot think of a normal birth in the Mahabharata. Can anyone think of a normal birth? Bhishma? Not really. Not really. I mean, his mother was from the heavenly planet. She killed all of his brothers, you know. Not quite normal in my book. Anyone else think of a normal birth? I can't. Anyway, even, you know, Satyavati, some versions of the Mahabharata have her like in the a belly of a fish, and the fish was opened up. And she smelled bad because she came out of the fish. And actually, there's another version that was actually told where she was the daughter of King Vasu. It's interesting. She's the daughter of King Vasu, and it was predicted that an incarnation of Krishna was going to be born from her. So therefore, King Vasu understood that one of his descendants was going to be a demon, and that demon was Jarasandha. And that had it been known, and it was known, because the demons, they actually came from the higher, you know, demon planets, and they actually had special powers. So had it been known, and it was known, that Vasu's daughter, whose name was Satyavati, was going to give birth to an incarnation of God, they would have killed her. So in this particular version of the Mahabharata, King Vasu hid her in a fisher village. Interesting, isn't it? So, in other words, her birth was normal, which is different than every other birth. And she wasn't born from a fish, but she was adopted by the fishermen because she was in hiding from Jarasandha, who was the grandson of King Vasu. King Vasu had like 5 sons, and anyway, and Vasu understood that his grandson was going to be a demon. They understood, they had astrology at that time, so they could actually understand the qualities of a particular individual, even as they were being born. That's interesting. Like even the story of Duryodhana's birth, he had certain qualities, like he brayed like an ass, and all the inauspicious signs were there. And Vidura said, what? Get rid of him. Kill him. Because he's going to be the cause of the destruction of the dynasty. Of course, Dhritarashtra was too attached, so he didn't take Vidura's advice. Anyway, so interesting births. So many interesting births in the Mahabharata. And, all right, so let's continue. So, anyway, so Drona was born from a pot. So Dronacharya is the son of Bharadwaja Muni. Others say that Bharadwaja, the father of Drona, is a different person from Maharishi Bharadwaja. Now, the reason you have different versions of this, you know, people say this, people say that, is because it's based, as we mentioned yesterday, on the Mahabharata, which actually unfortunately, according to Sripad Madhvacharya, we mentioned this yesterday, in the Tatparita Nirnaya, has been dramatically changed, and there's different versions, something like 84 different versions. We said that yesterday. And even the scholars have not been able to ascertain what is what's called the critical edition of the Mahabharata. The critical means the original edition. So the scholars have examined all these different editions, trying to figure out, what's there from the original using linguistic analysis and other methodologies. But it's impossible to understand. But the Bhagavatam has been passed down in disciplic succession, untouched, so we accept this as perfect knowledge. You understand? And when there's some contradiction between the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata, we always accept the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam is perfect. The Mahabharata originally was perfect. Not that I'm criticizing Vedic literatures, but the present versions we have, we cannot ascertain what is the truth. And also, in addition, the Bhagavad Gita is perfect. So we have these two literatures. And we also have, any of the other Vedic literatures that have been given to us by our acharyas in our disciplic succession. For example, our acharyas will quote from what? The Kurma Purana, Matsya Purana, Varaha Purana, right? Or the Upanishads, Svetasvastra Upanishads, Upanishad, like that. So those particular sections, we understand, are in their original form. Does everybody understand the point I'm making? Whereas some of the other secondary, supplementary Vedic literatures, or even the Upanishads, some of them may have been tampered with. Now the four original, what we call the original Vedas, that's the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda, we have them in their original form. Can anyone guess why? Any guesses here? Why? No, Vyasadeva is the author of all those literatures. We have them in the original form because they're passed down to be chanted, what? In exact meter from guru to disciple. You understand what I'm talking about? Exact meter. And also the Valmiki Ramayana we have in its original form because it's a poem. It's the world's longest epic poem. And basically, it's all in the same meter. And it was memorized like that. Guru to disciple. People had such strong memories before that the guru could say something and the disciple could repeat it, what we call verbatim. That means exactly and the same rhythm. Nowadays, Kali Yuga, Manda Samanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Padrata. The guru can say something and the disciple can be asked by the guru, what did I just say? And the disciple will probably say the opposite. Guru, you gave me permission to do this. What? Anyway, so it's Kali Yuga right now. Don't take advantage. So anyways, I'll get back to the story here. So that's why there's some difference. Others say this, some people say this, some people say that, because they're going by different versions of the Mahabharata. Exactly my point. Once he approached Dronacharya and requested him to stop the battle of Kurukshetra. That's interesting too. Dronacharya didn't stop the battle of Kurukshetra. Dronacharya fought on the wrong side for two different reasons. One reason was that he felt obligated to the Kauravas because they were maintaining him. As a Brahmin, he should not have taken goods from the Kauravas, because when a Brahmin takes employment, he actually loses his caste. That's interesting. So what about our devotees who work on the outside? Have they lost their caste? Interesting question. One of my godbrothers says yes, but I say no. Because specifically, if a Brahmin takes money for his Brahminical activities, then he's lost his caste. But if he makes a living in an unrelated fashion, you understand what I'm talking about? Completely unrelated to his spirituality or his preaching or anything like that, then he hasn't lost his caste. But if a Brahmin charges money for doing samskara, not a Brahmin anymore. But if a Brahmin works as a driving instructor, that's fine. And when he comes back to the temple, Hare Krishna. Then he hasn't lost his caste. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's really important. So, and anyway, Drona lost his caste because he accepted employment. And secondly, the other reason, I said there were two reasons, that Dronacharya fought on the wrong side, was that he was very, very attached to his son, Ashwathama. And Ashwathama was like this with Duryodhana. He could not be separated. Ashwathama loved Duryodhana. Very, very interesting. And that involves something that happened earlier in the Mahabharata. But anyway, and the Pandavas didn't like Ashwathama, and Ashwathama ultimately killed the sleeping sons of the Pandavas after the Battle of Kurukshetra was fought. Shoo. Killed a lot of other people too. Okay, next person is one of my favorite persons, Parashurama, or Renuka Sutta. That means the son of Renuka. He is the son of Maharishi Jamadagni and Srimati Renuka. Thus, he is also known as Renuka Sutta. He is one of the powerful incarnations of God, and he killed the Kshatriya community as a whole 21 times. That means he killed all the Kshatriyas, killed their children, killed their children, 21 generations. Phew. So, what happened after? How did we get Kshatriyas after that? Does anyone remember? No. Actually, the way we got Kshatriyas after that is that there were Kshatriya ladies, you understand, and the Brahmanas gave them children. That's how we had Kshatriyas. Otherwise, we'd have a whole bunch of Malachas and a few Brahmins. Anyway, so, and actually, generally the Kshatriyas, many of the Kshatriyas actually escaped India and went to Europe. That's why we have such an interesting European history with so many fights between isn't it? The countries. Oh my God. Such an interesting history. So with the blood of the Kshatriyas, he pleased the souls of his forefathers. Later on, he underwent severe penances at Mahendra Parvata. After taking the whole earth from the Kshatriyas, he gave it in charity to Kashyapa Muni. Parshuram instructed the Dhanurveda the science of fighting to Dronacharya because he happened to be a Brahmin. He was present during the coronation of Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he celebrated the function along with other great rishis. Parshuram is so old that he met both Rama and Krishna at different times. He fought with Rama, but he accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I think I need to explain these stories. Actually quite interesting. The reason he fought with Lord Ram is that once upon a time there was the Sita Swayamvar. Sita was getting married to whoever could pick up Lord Shiva's bow and string it like that. And all these different characters came and they tried to pick it up. And none of them were able to even pick it up, what to speak of stringing it. So eventually, along comes Lord Ram, and he picks up this bow like a feather. And actually, the reason that Sita's father, Janaka, wanted to have that as the test during her Swayamvara was that when Sita was very young, she was looking for a ball that she was playing with, and the ball had fallen under this bow or near the bow, and she actually picked it up like that. So the father thought, she better marry a husband that's equally as strong. No good to have a strong wife like that and a weak husband. So then he arranged for this particular test. Lord Ram picked up the bow and went to string it, and it broke. The Acharyas explain that Lord Ram didn't break the bow, but the bow broke itself because it was Lord Shiva's bow and did not want to be utilized against a devotee of Lord Shiva. Who is the devotee of Lord Shiva? Ravan. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting story. So then, as soon as he broke it, crash, or the bow broke, and then you had our friend Parshuram on Parvat, Mount Parvat or something, and he heard this crash, and he goes, rah, these Kshatriyas, they're at it again. And he zooms down. He had the power to travel anywhere at the speed of the mind. So he comes down, and he says, who has broken this bow? And Lakshman steps forward, and he says, as children, we broke so many of these toys like this. And then Parshuram's eyes, they turn red, even redder than they normally are. And he said, who is this boy? And he gets ready to hurt him. And then Lord Ram pushes Lakshman aside and says, I broke the bow. I'm Ramchandra. And then Parshuram gets even angry. Ram? I'm the only Ram around here. That's a really interesting story. And what happens is that he says, if you are actually qualified to pick up the bow, you should take Lord Vishnu's bow and see what you do with it. And so he was getting ready to give Lord Vishnu's bow to Lord Ramchandra. Let them open the curtains. Jai Shri Shri Panchatattva. He was getting ready to give Lord Vishnu's bow to Lord Ramchandra, but Lord Ramchandra already had it in his hands. And he had it drawn. And Lord Ramchandra has this vow, one arrow, if he's drawn his bow, he has to shoot someone or something. And he said to Parshuram was, okay, I'm dealing with someone, that's more qualified than me. So, and Lord Ramchandra said, where should I shoot the arrow? And Parshuram thought, I only have two things. I have the ability to travel at the speed of the mind. I'm not going to give that one up. Or he can destroy all my previous, austerities, the result of my austerities. So Lord Ramchandra said, okay, boom. It was a mystical bow, actually. So that he did, and Parshuram went away, and he was very apologetic. That's an interesting story. Actually, so many stories about Parshuram that are coming to my mind. He's the son of Jamadagni. And so what happened is that Jamadagni, I guess I have to tell the story, sorry. Jamadagni had this cow, this Kama Denu, that means a desire cow. And what happened is this king of the province named Kartavira Arjuna, you may have heard his name before, he had many, many arms. and he, like 1,000 arms or something like that. He had previously defeated Ravan. At one particular juncture, he was causing the river that they were bathing in to go backwards. He was just using all his arms like that. And Parshuram got really upset because he was there with his girlfriend. I mean, not Parshuram, but Ravan got really upset because he was there with his girlfriend. And he challenged he didn't challenge Parshuram, sorry. He challenged Kartavira Arjuna, and they had a fight. And Kartavira Arjuna won, and he imprisoned Ravan. And Ravan basically had to make a deal with him. Let's be friends. Ravan actually was not invulnerable. He was also captured by Bali one particular time. You know the monkey, Bali? He was captured by him and put him under his armpit. But that's a different story. So anyway, that's in the Ramayana. It's a beautiful story. So anyway, let's get back. So Parshuram's father, Jamadagni, had this Kamadhenu, and Kartavira Arjuna comes, and he thinks, I want this Kamadhenu. And he says to Jamadagni, please give me this cow. I'll give you so many other cows in exchange. And then Jamadagni says no. And so what happens is eventually, eventually they steal the cow when Parshuram is not around. And Parshuram goes, and what does he do? He attacks the kingdom and kills Kartavira Arjuna. Yeah, here's the story. He kills Kartavira Arjuna, and he brings the cow back. He chops off all the arms and kills Kartavira Arjuna. Then Kartavira Arjuna's sons come, and they kill Jamadagni. They cut off his head. And then when Parshuram wasn't around at that particular time, so he goes and he attacks all the Kshatriyas at that time, kills the sons of Kartavira Arjuna, and kills the Kshatriyas 21 times. Whew. So the name Parshuram means the Ram with an axe. And even one time, he killed his mother and brothers. I'll tell that story. It's not as bad as it sounds. One time, his mother, Renuka, had gone to collect some water, and she saw a Gandharva, and she became romantically attracted to this Gandharva. And she was late collecting the sacrificial water. So she came back, and her husband, Jamadagni, said, I understand you've been lusty, and that's why you're late. So Jamadagni said to his sons, kill your mother. Hare Krishna. Oh my God. And the son said, no, we're not going to do it. And then he said to Parshuram, I'm so angry at your brothers, so you should kill your brothers and your mother. So it has a happy ending, don't worry. Don't worry, it has a happy ending. So Parshuram, in full knowledge that his father would be so pleased that his father could bring them all back to life later on, he killed them all with his axe. Would you obey your father like that? I don't think so. So anyway, so then what happened? He killed them all, and the father said, I'm very pleased, asked for a benediction. He said, I want you to bring them all back to life, and they shouldn't remember what happened to them. So Parshuram, don't get on the wrong side of Parshuram. So here, anyway, so we said he fought with Ram. We already spoke about that. But he accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also praised Arjuna when he saw him with Krishna. And actually, all right, here we're going to hear this story. When Bhishma, which we talked about before, refused to marry Amba, who wanted him to become her husband. Remember we told the story the other day about this? because she was supposed to marry Shalvaraj, and then Bhishma kidnapped her and sent her back, and Shalva wouldn't accept her, and she insisted upon marrying Bhishma, and then eventually she went to Parashuram to try to force the marriage, and Bhishma fought with Parashuram. So here it is. Amba met Parashuram, and by her request only, he asked Bhishma Dev to accept her as his wife. Bhishma refused to obey his order, although he was one of the spiritual masters of Bhishma Deva. Parashuram fought with Bhishma Deva when Bhishma neglected his warning. Both of them fought very severely, and at last Parashuram was pleased with Bhishma and gave him the benediction of becoming the greatest fighter in the world. A wonderful story. And next person is Vasishta. Quite a lengthy purport, but it's interesting. First time I read this purport as a new devotee, I just thought, wow, this is the type of stories I like. Vasishta, the great sage, great celebrated sage among the Brahmanas, well known as the Brahma Rishi Vasishta Deva. He's one of the Sapta Rishis too. He's a prominent figure in both the Ramayana and Mahabharata periods. He's actually the Kula Guru of Lord Ramchandra. That means the family guru of Lord Ramchandra. He celebrated the coronation ceremony of the personality of Godhead, Sri Ram. He was present also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He could approach all the higher and lower planets, and his name is also connected with the history of Hiranyakashipu. I don't know that story. There was a great tension between him and Viswamitra, who wanted his Kamadhenu, same thing. Wish-fulfilling cow, Vasishta Muni refused to spare his Kamadhenu, and for this, Vishwamitra killed his 100 sons. As a perfect Brahmin, he tolerated all the taunts of Vishwamitra. Once he tried to commit suicide on account of Vishwamitra's torture, but all of his attempts were unsuccessful. He jumped from a hill, but the stones on which he fell became a stack of cotton, and thus he was saved. He jumped into the ocean, but the waves washed him ashore. He jumped into the river, but the river also washed him ashore. Thus all his suicide attempts were unsuccessful. He is also one of the 7 rishis, that's Sapta Rishis, and the husband of Arundhati, the famous star. Indrapramada, another celebrated rishi, Chitta, one of the 3 sons of Prajapati Gautama. He was the 3rd son, and his other 2 brothers were known as Ekat and Dvita. 1, 2, and 3. What's your name? 1. What's your name? 2. Oh, and you must be 3. That's interesting, isn't it? Eka, 1. Dvita, 2. And Chitta, 3. Anyway. Some of the names are really interesting. All the brothers were great sages and strict followers of the principles of religion. By dint of severe penances, they were promoted to Brahmaloka, the planet where Brahmaji lives. Once Chitta Muni fell into a well. I don't know that story. He was an organizing worker of many sacrifices and is one of the great sages. He also came to show respect to Bhishmaji at his deathbed. He was one of the 7 sages in Varunaloka. He hailed from the western countries of the world. Maybe Slovenia. As such, most probably he belonged to the European countries. Wow. You should be proud of him. At that time, the whole world was under one Vedic culture. Gritsmada, one of the sages of the heavenly kingdom, he was a close friend of Indra, the king of heaven, and was as great as Brahaspati. He used to visit the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he also visited the place where Bhishma Deva breathed his last. Sometimes he explained the glories of Lord Shiva before Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was the son of Vitahovya, and he resembled in feature the body of Indra. Indra features the body of Indra. Sometimes the enemies of Indra mistook him to be Indra and arrested him. He was a great scholar of the Rig Veda, and thus he was highly respected by the Brahmana community. He lived a life of celibacy and was powerful in every respect. Asita. There was a king of the same name, but here in the Asita mentioned is the Asita Devala Rishi, a great powerful sage of the time. He explained to his father 1,400,000 verses from the Mahabharata. He was one of the members of the snake sacrifice of Maharaj Janamejaya. He was also present during the coronation ceremony of Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with other great rishis. He also gave Maharaj Yudhisthira instructions while he was on the Jana hill. He was also one of the devotees of Lord Shiva. Here's a question for all of you. Where is his name mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita? No, where's the Sita's name? What?
Whose name?
Asita.
Great sages comfort that Krishna is the previous.
No, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, where's his name?
11, 10, something. This Arjuna,
Yeah. You got it. Asita Devala Vyasa Swam Chaiva Pravishime. Right? Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Sashvatam Divyam Adidevam Aham Vibhavu. And then right after that, Asita Devala. So, in other words, you're the supreme abode, supreme Brahman. And how do I know this of you? Because all the great sages, such as Sita Devala and Vyas, have declared this of you. Kakshivan, here's another one. One of the sons of Gautama Muni and the father of the great sage Chanda Kaushika. He was one of the members of the parliament of Maharaj Yudhisthira. Another point about Gautama Muni. Anyway, I'll tell the story later about Gautama Muni. Atri is the next one. Atri Muni was a great Brahmana sage and was one of the mental sons of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is so powerful that simply by thinking of his son, he can have it. These sons are known as Manasa Putras, these mind sons. Out of the 7 Manasa Putras of Brahmaji and out of the 7 great Brahmana sages, Atri was one. In his family, the great Prachetas were born. Atri Muni had 2 Kshatriya sons who became kings. King Artama is one of them. He is counted as one of the 21 Prajapatis. His wife's name was Anasuya. And he helped Maharaj Parikshit in his great sacrifices. Kaushika, one of the permanent rishi members of the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhisthira. He sometimes met Lord Krishna. There are several other sages of the same name. Actually, a lot of things here. Sudarshana, the wheel which is accepted by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, as his personal weapon, is the most powerful weapon, greater than the Brahmastras or similar other disastrous weapons. In some of the Vedic literatures, it is said that Agni Deva, the fire god, presented this weapon to Lord Krishna, but factually this weapon is eternally carried by the Lord. Agni Deva presented this weapon to Krishna in the same way that Rukmini was given by Maharaj Rukma to the Lord. The Lord accepts such presentations from his devotees, even though such presentations are eternally his property. Everything is eternally his property. Isn't it? Ishavashamidam sarvam. There is an elaborate description of this weapon in the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata. Lord Sri Krishna used this weapon to kill Shishupal. You all know the story. A rival of the Lord. He also killed Shalva by this weapon, and sometimes he wanted his friend Arjuna to use it to kill his enemies. You can borrow it, Arjuna. Mahabharat Virata Parva 56.3. And that is the end of the purport. And because it's almost time to end class, we can take questions. Yeah, there was that other story I want to tell about Gautama Rishi. His wife was Ahalya. And, because Gautama Rishi is mentioned here with all of his children. And Ahalya, actually, she had an encounter with Lord Indra. She was so attractive that Lord Indra wanted to have a relationship with her. And so what he did, he waited until Gautama Rishi went to take a bath, and he assumed the form of Gautama Rishi, went into the house, had a relationship with Ahalya, and he was walking out, thinking, I've cheated everybody. And who comes back but Gautama Rishi? And Gautama Rishi looks at Indra and he sees himself. And he understands exactly what has happened. He gets angry at Indra, and he basically curses Indra to lose his masculinity. And then Indra has to go and get a transplant from a ram, an animal. So he has to get a transplant to get back his masculinity. But he's really angry too, and he's angry at Ahalya. And there's two versions of the story. The one in the Valmiki Ramayana is he turns her into, like a ghost, and disincarnate. The typical Hindu story is that he turns her into a stone. Anyway, but in the Valmiki Ramayana, which I've read actually, the original Valmiki Ramayana, he turns her into a ghost. She just hovers around there. And so she's suffering. And eventually, after many, many years, Lord Ram comes and he enters the hermitage of Gautama Rishi. And Gautama Rishi is no longer there. He's gone somewhere else. And he's able to save Ahalya, who again appears before him and offers respects to him. And Ahalya is also the mother of the guru of Maharaj Nimi. Interesting. And so when Lord Ram enters Mithila, you have to marry Sita Devi to go to the Swayamvara of Sita Devi. The guru of Maharaj Nimi actually is very appreciative of Lord Ram because of that. Anyway, it's an interesting story. So anybody have any questions? Yes?
I have a question regarding the relationship between Vasishtha Muni and Vishwamitra.
You,
And especially Vishwamitra's and
especially Vishwamitra is attaining the Brahma Rishi status.
especially Vishwamitra's envy, one could say, towards Vasishtha.
Okay.
Because do you understand correctly that Vishwamitra was initially a Kshatriya
Yeah, and he became a Brahmin.
and then later he became Brahmana?
Oh. All right. You want me to answer that?
My question, okay, I have this.
Yeah.
And then the second is, he committed so many offenses towards Vasishtha Muni. And how was then he still successful? I mean, how was it possible that he didn't completely ruin himself with what he was doing to Vasishtha Muni?
All right. Here we go with the whole story of Vishwamitra Muni. Vishwamitra Muni is a descendant of the king Kaushika that's mentioned. And he was a king, obviously, and he had very large retinue of soldiers and everything like that. So one day he was in the forest, and he was close with all of his soldiers and horses and everything like that to the ashram of Vasishtha Muni. So what happens is he stops by, puts everything aside, goes in, offers respects to Vasishtha. He was very respectful to Vasishtha Muni. And Vasishtha Muni said, look, I want to entertain you and all your soldiers and all your horses in my ashram. I want to give them prasadam and everything. And Visramita, he says, huh? You're just a poor sage. How are you going to do it? He said, don't worry. Vasishtha Muni says, don't worry. You all sit down and prasadam's coming. And not only is prasadam coming, you all think of what your favorite type of prasadam is. So someone was thinking of pizza. I don't know. Another person was thinking of sauerkraut. No, probably not. That's European. Anyway, whatever, millet bread. So anyways, everybody was thinking of their favorite food, and this Kamadhenu produced all the favorite foods of the soldiers. And not only that, after they were finished, their stomachs were full. Then the Kamadhenu produced some entertainment, dancing girls for all of them. So they were just, wow. And Visramita was thinking, why does a sage have this cow? I should have the cow. Okay. And so he goes to Vasishtha, and he said, I told you a long story. So, quite long. He goes to Vasishtha, and he says to Vasishtha Muni, I'll give you 1,000 or 1 million regular cows in exchange. And Vasishtha says, no way. I need this Kamadhenu. Her name was Nandini, actually. I need her to be able to, perform my sacrifices. And Visramita gets so upset that he grabs her and tries to take her away. And he's able to take her away. She runs back to Vasishtha, and she said, do you want him to take me? And he said, no, but actually, I'm not going to fight with him, even though I have the prowess. I don't want to use my weapons against him. But do you want me to stay? And Vasishtha said, yes, stay. And she said, okay, no problem. So she produces, it's just the beginning of the story. So she produces all these soldiers from her udder and from the tail and, all parts of her body. And they attack the army of Visramitra and actually kill everybody, including Visramitra's sons. So this is the first battle right here. So then Visramitra gets really upset and he says, I got to get weapons to fight with this sage. There's too much. All my sons have been killed. So he goes, performs austerities, gets the heavenly weapons. And he comes back and says, now I gotcha. And so he starts to fire all these weapons at Vasishtha Muni's hermitage. And Vasishtha Muni's disciples, they run away in fear. But Vasishtha Muni very calmly raises his staff. They have these brahminical staffs that are shaped like a U. They hold their arm, put their arm on. You ever see them? Before he holds it, and he absorbs all the weapons. So Visramitra is really upset at this time. And he thinks, all right, that's it. I got to become a Brahmin. And so he starts to perform austerities, and eventually he gets the position of Raja Rishi. That means sage amongst the kings. But that's not going to be enough for him. Then, oh my God, such a long story. Then after that, he starts to perform austerities again. And we're talking about thousands of years. We're not talking about a short period of time. And then Lord Brahma Indra, he decides, we got to stop this guy from performing austerities. So he sends down Menaka, famous story. Menaka comes down, and she basically rings her ankle bells. And Vishwamitra, he opens his eyes, he sees her, and forgets about his austerities, and for a few years. And as a result, they have a girl is born. But as soon as she's born, Menaka just says, I'm out of here. And Vishwamitra realized he's made a big mistake, so Menaka's also scared of Vishwamitra getting angry with him. She leaves, he leaves, and they drop this poor girl off in the forest, a little baby. You've heard this story before? I'm sure you've heard this story. Shakuntala means that she was adopted or protected by the vultures. So eventually she's taken care of by this sage, Kanva Muni. Kanva Muni takes care of her, and eventually, anyway, I'm not going to tell this part of the story. She marries Dushmanta, King Dushmanta, and as a result, this other person, Bart, is born. And this Bart is not the Bart that turned into a deer, it's a different Bart. And Prabhupada said this is one of the Barts the Bart Varsha is named after. So anyway, so then he begins to perform austerities again. And, phew, oh my God, this story. So then there's this king from the Sun Dynasty, named Trishanku, who wants to go to heaven without changing his body. And so first he goes to Vishishta Muni, and Vishishta Muni says, "No way, Jose." Sorry. And they're stupid. You can't go to heaven in the same body. You got to change your body. And then he goes to Vishishta Muni's sons, and the sons get very upset because their father has said no, and he's trying to make an end run around their father's instructions. So they curse him to become like, a melecha. So all of his skin turns, whatever, different colors, and his jewelry turns all to just a base metal instead of gold. So here's this ugly guy walking around, and he can't stand it anymore. So then he goes to Vishwamitra. And he says to Vishwamitra, can you do this? And Vishwamitra says yes. And then he invites all of the other sages to participate in his sacrifice to allow Trishanku to go to the heavenly planets. Everybody's following the story so far? It's a little complicated. So Trishanku is very happy about this. And Vishwamitra even invites the sons of Vashishta to participate. Vashishta's sons say no. So he basically kills Vashishta's sons at this particular point. Then he performs the sacrifice, and he says during the sacrifice, Trishanku, go to the heavenly planets. So he goes to the heavenly planets. So the residents of the heavenly planets see this ugly guy coming at them. And they say, go back down. And then Vishwamitra says, go back up. And so he's bouncing back and forth, up and down, up and down. And eventually, Vishwamitra creates a whole imitation heavenly planets at that time. Okay? And there, in other words, he's exhausted all of his tejas, or his power. So he has to start austerities again. And so then, then another thing comes up, that he, someone who was meant to be in a human sacrifice, there were human sacrifices at that time somehow or other, approaches him and says to him, save me. I don't want to be sacrificed. So he says to his sons, one of you should take the place of this particular individual who's going to be sacrificed. And his sons say, no, Dad. And then he curses all of his sons to become malechas for like thousands of births or something like that. And his sons pass away. So he kills his own sons. I mean, he has a real anger problem. And eventually, he teaches this person who's supposed to be sacrificed some Vishnu mantras, so he's not actually killed. So that's good. Happy ending to that story. But in the meantime, he's also exhausted all of his tejas. Then he goes to meditate again, for another 1,000 years. As he's meditating, a bird in the tree over him passes stool on him. And he looks at the bird and burns the bird to ashes with his glance. Then he loses all of his tejas again. Talk about suffering, This guy is really has problems at that point. Then he starts meditating again. And the demigods send Ramba, another heavenly society girl, and he doesn't have a relationship with her. He's just angry and, burns her. So he loses all of his tejas again, and he just keeps, eventually he gets this different status like Rishi and things like that. Lord Brahma keeps benedicting, but not with Brahma Rishi yet. It's not becoming a Brahman yet. It's also Rishi or something like that. And, all right. So then he's meditating. He's become more and more powerful. Lord Brahma and demigods come down in different disguise. He's getting ready to eat after a long fast. And they ask for the food. And instead of getting angry, he gives them the food. He passes the test this time. And then he meditates for another few thousand years. And eventually Lord Brahma comes and says, now you are a Brahma Rishi. By this point, he suffered so much for his offenses that he and Vasishta, they make friends with each other. And they're good friends. And then the Ramayan, Valmiki Ramayan, you actually see them working together to help Lord Ramchandra. Because when Viswamitra Muni comes to ask for Ram, because his sacrifice is being disturbed by all these Rakshasas, when Viswamitra comes, Dasarath doesn't want to give Ram, but Vasishta Muni advises him you should give Ram. And so Lord Ram goes with Viswamitra, and he basically kills one of the Rakshasas, and he sends the other one, Uncle Marich, into the ocean 800 miles away, and eventually Marich, that's the same Marich, who later on assumes the form of a golden deer to lure Ram away from the ashram so that Sita Devi is kidnapped. Anyway, it's all connected. It's all this from the Ramayana, the Valmiki Ramayana. So, does that answer your question? Whew. It's a long story. And if you're interested in all the details, all the Valmiki Ramayana, if I knew we were going to ask the question, I have all my notes prepared for that story. It's a whole other class in and of itself. I have a whole outline and notes because it's such an interesting story of Viswamitra Muni becoming a Brahma Rishi. Okay, on that happy note, it's time to end our austerities and take prasadam. Thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh my God. I was hoping I wouldn't ask that. I asked that. Anyway. All right. Such an interesting purport, isn't it? There's so much information in it. Gauranga. Gauranga. Go, go.